Today we will be presenting on ANSEL CSR in educational sector and analysis of scandals in Nepal since 2010. First of all, I would like to introduce my group members. They are Kusal, Arisma, Imita, Nitesh, Chandra and myself, Samita. As you know that ANSEL Private Limited is the very first private mobile operator in the country, which was established in 2004, and acting as a very responsible corporate of the country. It has contributed to Nepalese society in different measures such as education, technologies, and many more. Hence ANSEL is actively involved in CSR activities, especially focusing on the educational sector. And from the research, we knew that ANSEL has invested more than $388 million US in CSR activities, and is planning to invest $1 billion for the construction and development of the schools and colleges, which was victim of the last earthquake in 2015. However, being a very good corporate company like ANSEL has accused of tax evasion scandals and controversies, where the major dispute occurred when Telia Sonera did not pay its required amount of gain tax to the Nepalese government after they sold its share to the multinational company Axiata, and also been accused for evading income taxes over the years. Therefore, the main objective of this project is to analyze whether ANSEL is just putting a good front to the people, and to carry out in-depth analysis of tax scandal of ANSEL, and to finally decide if ANSEL's practices are ethical or not. And now I'd like to call Aisma to continue.
Hi everyone. I would like to talk about the CSR activities done by ANSEL. And firstly, ANSEL likes to focus on the educational sector. So therefore, they have adopted this policy of adopt a school. And this is done by the help of Save the Children. They are focused on rural areas where there is heavy poverty and people are unable to get a proper education. And some of the example of this is Sri Bandevi Lower Secondary School, and also Kardeshwar Higher Secondary School in Doti. And they have done this by establishing many classrooms, toilets, and extracurricular activities for children. And another thing is they've tried to establish digital libraries in school. Although we have focused on education in the modern generation, we're still lacking behind on how we extract materials in schools. So therefore, ANSEL has tried to improve this by establishing digital libraries. And some of the example of this is Ekpriya Higher Secondary School in Bardia and Amar Jyoti Higher School in Surkhet. They've done this through the help of Save the Children again. And Save the Children has tried to monitor this by providing orientation for teachers to use these type of platforms, and they've been able to help students to enhance their education by using materials online. And also, although there is equality between men and women, in Nepal we often believe that girls should get lesser education than male, even though we're in the modern society. So therefore, ANSEL tries to encourage girls and help them achieve higher education by giving them scholarships. And they've done this by focusing again on more rural areas, such as the Karnali zone. And in this as well, they've done this through Save the Children, and they've helped many girls, such as Srishti Magar from Rogum, and also Bina Magar from Ropa. And they've been trying to help them through SLC level to graduation. So with this, they provide every single aid they can possibly do to help them to complete their education. Now I'd like to call Imita to continue with the presentation.
Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about the tax avoidance carried on by NSEL in the past few years. The main issue here is for the Nepalese government whether to impose the capital gain tax on the buyer, that is Axiata company, or the seller TeliaSonera. According to section 57 of the income tax, if there is any change in ownership of 50% or more, then the entity shall be treated as disposing of any assets or liability owned by it, which suggests that the government of Nepal has a provision of imposing tax even if it is a non-residential company if its asset is situated in Nepal. But during the ownership of TeliaSonera, there was a DTA treaty done between Norway and Nepal where TeliaSonera had to pay tax only in its home country. Also, the sale and purchase agreement between TeliaSonera and Axiata had a provision where Axiata would be free of any unforeseen tax liabilities. The main challenge of the tax authorities of Nepal now is to discover whether they will go for the DTA treaty or accept its domestic laws. Globalization has been proven as a boon for multinational companies as it supports neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is a set of policies that creates free market for multinational companies to expand. But on the other hand, it is a policy which makes rich more richer and poor poorer. In the case of NSEL, TeliaSonera believes that it should go for DTA treaty, which makes it free from the capital gain taxes for government of Nepal. Now I'm going to talk about the methodology. We decided on doing the primary and secondary research, but NSEL did not allow us for the interview, so we had to go for secondary research only. For the secondary research, we did search on magazines, newspaper, internet, PDF files, etc. Through that, we collected many qualitative information which is presented here. Now I'd like to call Nikesh.
Thank you, Mita. Now I'd like to continue with the discussions. CSR activities these days are mandatory for every organization, as well as Nepal. So, to sustain in the market, NSEL has done this process of CSR activities, and there is a conspiracy going on with NSEL and government. The conspiracy is that the TeliaSonera and sold the shares to Axiata in 1.65 billion USD. The company NSEL has to. The government said that the NSEL has to pay capital gain tax of 35 million. So NSEL has not yet paid. According to Mr. Koirala, the former chief secretary, has said that government and NSEL both are in fault, as according to him, some tax officers are saying that the tax should be paid, and some of them are saying that the tax should not be required to pay. So, with the formal, now the current chief executive, Mr. Paudel, said that NSEL should pay the tax and asked NSEL to pay, but he was threatened for his life, and then he said that in every nation, a company should pay a liability or liability to the government and do not avoid the tax for any company. So Ansel also, government also said that Ansel to provide tax, but Ansel has not given tax. So this theory, we relate the theory with denationalization theory, where the Secretary Paudel has said that Ansel is suppressing and avoiding the tax of our nation, and will not be and should not do this. So by saying this, I would like to call Kushal.
According to Nepali public media, Ansel had asked the Inland Revenue Department that how much revenue it had to pay to the government, but the verdict has not been passed yet. So what government needs to do right now is they need to analyze similar case like Ansel's that has occurred in other countries, and a similar case of Vodafone occurred in India. The Indian government had to decide whether or not to charge the capital gain tax when Vodafone Holdings International entered India to purchase shares of CGP Investments from Hutchison International. And what they did was, first of all, they analyzed the international taxation policy, which avoided the dual taxation system to create favorable environment for multinational companies to operate in foreign lands. Secondly, they recognized the holding company structure, which was recognized internationally, and also met the requirement of Indian Companies Act. And lastly, they decided to treat a company as a separate person, so thus identifying that a parent and subsidiary companies are two distinct taxpayers. Therefore, the Supreme Court of India decided that the purchase of shares of CGP Investments by Vodafone from Hutchison International was not subject to tax payment in India. So now what can be the way out for Nepalese government from this controversy? Now I'm going to talk about that. And clearly from the tax policy of Nepal, the laws itself and the judiciary system itself is not too powerful. And the section 57 of Income Tax Act seems to be completely irrelevant, since whatever the decision is made, it is not going to change the shareholdings of Ansel. And accusing Ansel to pay the tax would, from on the basis of GAR, would be violation of international taxation policy. Therefore, what government needs to do is they need to go for a mutual understanding with Norway and analyze the DTA treaty well, so that they can actually decide whether or not TeliaSonera is actually liable to pay the capital gain tax. And although many government officials may claim that Ansel is liable, it would be inappropriate for them to pass out philosophical skepticism. And what philosophical skepticism refers to is passing out judgment in a rapid and hurried manner without proper analysis and interpretation. Hence, it would be best if this matter was concluded in the Supreme Court with further discussions to avoid philosophical skepticism. And by saying this next,
Ansel contributed towards the society which is valuable, admirable, and developing the nation. In the case of tax payment, Ansel demands unethicals. Not only they avoid the capacity gain taxation, but Ansel claimed to have avoiding income taxes from early years. By following the capability approach, they have successfully maximized profit, as well as on the other hand, they are limiting the potential of government invest in public sectors. The slogan of Ansel is here for Nepal. They are really mean it, and they are responsible. As a responsible corporate citizen, they need to pay their taxes in time, so that the government can invest in the education sector, which will reduce the literacy ratio of our country. Finally, government officers also need to be ethical and responsible towards their jobs, and also need to update the policies from time to time, so that the current situation like Ansel could not be big deal in the future aspects. At the last, I would like the government to analyze similar case of other countries and avoid philosophy skeptics. Thank you, sir.